Hello and welcome to the world's fastest tutorial for GIMP 3.0. GIMP is an open source free image manipulation program that you can use to edit photos, create collages, create like video thumbnails, or even do art. Like I do all of my pixel art in GIMP. And I want to show you the basics of how to use it. If you download and install GIMP, you should be welcomed by a little welcome screen. But I'm just going to close out of that right now. And I am going to show you the workspace. So right here's the workspace. Over here is the tools. Over here is the tool settings. And over to the right, you have the layers and like brush settings over here. I'm going to actually move my head a little bit. So you can see brush settings over here. Right now I have just a single pixel for my brush. So don't worry about that. And we don't have any layers yet, so you won't see any layers. Let me open up my notes over on the right. So if you see me looking to the right, it's because I have my notes over there. And let's get going. Let's start by how do you get an image in here to edit? Well, there's two ways. The first is File, Open. I'm going to go to my desktop and I have an image saved to my desktop. I'm going to double click it and there we have a photo we can edit. And you'll notice you get a little tab here and you can actually open a bunch of different photos and open them up. So for instance, if I go to File, Open, and I'm not going to save this for y'all. I'll open up art. My kids make some random Microsoft Paint art, but I can actually hold Shift and select all of them and open them, and it will open all of them in different tabs. And I can click different tabs. And then if I want to close out of them, I can just click the little exit button and exit out of them. The other way to get photos into GIMP, I'm going to make this smaller, is to simply drag and drop. So I have it on my desktop, I drag it over, and I open it up. There we go. So that's how you get an image in there. So this is a film photo that I took several years ago. I shoot analog film. And when I get the scans back from the place that develops my photos, I always like to tweak and edit the photos just slightly. This is a street photo I took of a lovely, beautiful subject in downtown Minneapolis. And I just love her expression so much. But you'll notice that there's way too much space around her. I really want to focus on her, and you do that by cropping. Over here's the cropping tool. You can get to the cropping tool by hovering or using the keyboard shortcut Shift-C. Click that. And with the cropping tool, you see there is a bunch of settings, but it's on my cursor, so I can just click and drag to crop. Now I click and drag, and it shows me a preview of what I'm about to crop. And I can move this around, make it smaller, right? And I'm going to make sure I get all of her backpack because it's that beautiful red color, right? I'm going to get rid of the car on the left, on the right. And I'm going to go like this. There we go. I cropped it. Now, what if you want like a specific size? I'm going to hit Control Z or Command Z to undo that. You can select this size and you can actually, hold on, check fixed aspect ratio. And if you do it before creating any crop window, it'll use the ratio of your photo. So now it can keep the same aspect ratio of my photo, which I like to do for my photography. So I'm going to make it really focused on her. There we go. I have cropped it now. Now, say this photo's way too big. Right now it's scanned and it's like almost 3,000 pixels wide. It's 2,000 pixels tall. Oops. And say that's too big and you want to scale it down. You can scale images or layers in an image. You'll see on the bottom right that this is one layer that I have going on. You can use that with the scale tool. So if you go over here and hover over here, you see there's an entire suite of tools for transforming your image. Right now I have it selected as the scale tool, which is Shift S, but also you can look at the different, let me cancel out of that. You can look at the different tools and use the keyboard shortcut. So for instance, if I want to rotate, I hit Shift R. Exit out of that. If I want to flip, Shift F. Right, I can flip the image. But I'm going to just go back to Shift S for scale. And here I can keep the aspect ratio or I cannot. I usually keep the aspect ratio. And I click and drag and I can scale it up and down or input specific values. Say I'm making a collage and I know for a fact that the height cannot be above 1,000 pixels. I'll set that to 1,000. This is currently locked in the aspect ratio. So if I click over here, it readjusts and I get a perfect aspect ratio. I can click scale Now that I have a smaller image than my canvas, I want to show a different tool, which is the move tool over here, the move tool. If I click that, I can click and move any layer. Right now I have this layer selected and I can move this layer around my image. So let me hit Control Z or Command Z to undo all of that. The move tool is very helpful and I use it a lot, and you're going to see it a lot when I create a little collage in a moment. But now that we've cropped it, let's adjust the color a little bit. So I'm going to go over to colors, and there's a lot of different things you should play around with here to play around with it. For instance, I can make it black and white by going to denaturate and clicking denaturate, and then I can choose what type of denaturation I would like, which gives different types of black and white images, right? I can adjust the brightness and contrast. So if I'm doing a black and white image, I do like to have it very contrasty. So one way I do that is I increase the brightness a bit and then I increase the contrast a bit. And then I go to denaturate after that. And it gives me a much more pleasant black and white image by increasing the brightness and the contrast. I'm going to hit Control Z. You can also go to levels, which is a tool to adjust brightness and contrast. This middle, just play around with these. And these are the clamps on the right. So say if I want it a little brighter, a little more contrasty, I can do it in here too. This is a little more advanced, but it gives you more fine control. And there's an even more advanced version of this that I'm not going to show you how to use, but I can point it out to you. It's curves. So if you want to play around with curves and see how it adjusts the image, right, you can play around with that. It can get really fun, as you can see. I'm just going kind of crazy right there. But now I've adjusted, I've made the colors pop a little bit, and I have the right size. I've cropped it, and there you go. I've edited this photo, and it looks fantastic, right? You can also apply effects here. So if I make sure this is selected, I can go over to filters, and I can like blur the image. There's a bunch of options to blur. I can enhance, a bunch of options, noise, light and shadow, distortions, right? I can apply a lens. But play around with those effects and see what fun things you can do with those effects. But I'm going to let you do that on your own time. I'm going to close out of this and now show you how to manage multiple layers by creating a collage, and also how to create a new image. So I've removed that and now we have a blank workspace. But say I want to have a blank canvas to work in. You just go over to File, you go to New, click New, and you put the image size of your new image. Now for this, I'm imagining that I'm making like a YouTube thumbnail that consists of a collage of tattoos, because I like tattoos, as you can see. So I'm going to keep the width and height to be 1920 by 1080, which is a very common image size for thumbnails. Right now, I can also select the orientation here, right? But I always just put it in manually right here. I also like to click advanced options, and then there's a little scroll bar here, and I go down, and you can default fill it with different things. And I don't like to fill it with a background color or any color at all. I like it to be empty space. Right now, if I have it fill with background color and click OK, it's going to fill it with whatever color is in the background over here, or I can set it to fill with the foreground, right? Exit out of that. But if I go to File, New, Advance, scroll down, I can also say fill with transparency, and then click OK. And I like this because this gives me a little bit more control, and I recommend that you always create a new image with a transparency. And if you want to fill it with something, you can always go over here to the bucket fill tool, click that, select a color, right? Click a color, click OK, and then you can use the bucket fill tool to fill it. Actually, I've set the transparency to lower. I'll set the opacity of my bucket fill tool to 100%, and then there you go. But I like to keep things transparent, which gives me just a little bit more control. Now we need to add images to create this collage. So right now I have one layer called a background layer, but you're going to see this start filling up with new layers as I add them. So I have a subreddit open on my Firefox browser called r/tattoos, and I'm going to get a bunch of images to add to this collage. This is just what I found today. I went to tattoos and I put top of this year. And what I'm going to do, and both on Mac and Windows, there are the same tool. It's called something different, but on Windows, it's called the snipping tool. I'm just going to search and go to snipping tool. On Mac, oh, sorry, I bumped my microphone. Sorry, let me calm that down. Sorry about that. On the Mac, it's something different. I think you can use Command Shift 4 to open up that tool, or Command Shift 3 to just capture the whole screen. But I recommend Command Shift 4. So now I have the snipping tool. I can go to New, click New, and then it darkens my screen, and I can get this image right there. Beautiful. And this is the snipping tool window, and I can copy it by going over here and hitting copy, or I can hit Control C or Command C on my keyboard. So I'm going to click that so that copies the image. And then I can open up GIMP again, select the background layer, and paste it by going to Edit, Paste, or I hit Control V. Now I have that image pasted in here, and you'll notice over here on the right, I have a new layer. It's just called Pasted Layer. I'm going to rename that layer by hitting F2, or I can also right click it to get a context menu to rename it. Let's see, where is the rename? Scale layer, delete layer, where's the new layer? Edit layer attributes. I can't see the click, but what I do is I just hit F2 on my keyboard to rename it. I'm going to call this Tattoo 1. And now I'm going to click the Move tool, and I can move it around to wherever I want. I'm going to move it over here. Now we're going to be doing some adjusting later, but let's just fill this with a bunch of different tattoos. So I'm going to shut up for now, and I'm going to try to get a bunch of different tattoos that I can add. Open up my snipping tool again, click New. There we go. Copy, select the background layer, paste it in, and then move it so I have space. And then back over here. This one's pretty cool. Open up the snipping tool, New, copy, open GIMP, background layer selected, move it over. Let's get a few more. Move down here. Sure, that's fine. Copy, background, paste, move. And then maybe two more. This is funny. I like this one. Copy. Move it. Notice how I'm always keeping it on the background layer when I'm pasting it in, so it doesn't paste on a layer that's too small for it. Let's get one more, and this is funny too. I like this one. There we go. Copy. All right, so now we're going to create a collage, but right now, these are all the tattoos that I want to show in the collage, but you can see the canvas is a lot bigger. And remember, we're creating an imaginary YouTube thumbnail, and so this is the canvas size we need to use. So we can adjust things by using our scale tool, our select tool, and other tools right here. So I'm going to go over to the select tool, and there's different select shapes. There's a rectangle select tool and an ellipse select by hitting R or E, but I'm just going to click here for the rectangle select. And first off, I'm going to select this and make this smaller. So I'm just going to select this tattoo, and now it's selected. And I'm just going to hit Control C or Command C to copy it. And I'm going to click background, and I'm going to paste it. Oh, that's because I had the wrong layer selected. Now, because I had this image selected, when I went to copy it, it didn't copy the right thing. So I'm going to make sure I have the right layer selected. And I'm going to get rid of the extra layer. So if you want to get rid of a layer, click a layer, and you can right click it and hit delete layers to remove it. Okay, back to work here. Now I'm going to select this, make it a little smaller. I'm just going to select that, hit Control C, click the background, and hit Control V, and then I can move it out of the way. And there we go. I have that tattoo. And in fact, that means I can get rid of this. I'm going to actually do it faster by just selecting it and hitting the delete key. Oh, does it not let me do that? Oh, it lets me change the name. Okay. There we go, delete. Another quick keyboard shortcut to remember is Control or Command A, which selects the entire layer. I'm going to do that for the background layer so it doesn't have a selection anymore. But now I have it a little smaller. I'm going to move the other layers out of the way. I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to make it a lot bigger by selecting the Scale tool. I'm going to make sure that it keeps the aspect ratio. I keep on selecting the wrong layer. You always got to make sure the correct layer is selected. Scale. There we go. I'm going to make this a lot bigger. Scale. Now it makes it a little blurry, but remember, it's okay. This is going to be a YouTube thumbnail. So the next one I want to do, over here you'll see that it is considered a floating layer or a transformation. We're going to take care of that by clicking Create New Layer. You can also change the visibility of different layers by selecting the Eye tool. And you'll notice that my original layer that I transformed, there's nothing there anymore. So I can delete it. Oh yeah, this is with a quick delete right here, the exit. There we go. I'm gonna make it visible again. Now let's resize our other images also. So let's do this Bob's Burgers one next. I have it selected. Let's go to scale. Let's make it a lot bigger. Click scale and then move it over here. Right. Our next layer, this little thing needs to get a lot bigger. Let's first move it. Now you'll notice as I move it, layers go underneath and over other layers. Now, if I want this layer to be on top of everything, I can go over here and click and just drag the layer up to a different place. So now it's on top of all the other layers. Now let's scale this one up also. Scale, let's move it. So I'm trying to fill in all the space. So let's move the other layers so we can see them. There's this one, and lastly, this one. Now, I have some of these already cropped the way I want, but they're different heights. So I'm going to make these ones only take up the top half of the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all of this on all of these first 3 images. I'm going to make them all one layer. So I'm going to make sure that they are the top 3 layers. I'm going to move them to the top and then go down here and move this to the top. So they are now the top 3 layers. And I'm going to go down here. I'm going to select the top layer, and this button right here is merge down. I merge down those two layers, so they're now one layer. You can see if I move it around, see? And now I'm going to select it again and hit merge down. It merges down to that layer, and now I have this one solid layer, and I'm going to move this up to like right here. And then I'm going to delete a part of the bottom of the layer so it's all the same height. So I have selected that layer, I've used the selection tool, and now I'm just going to hit delete. Click the move tool, and I'm also going to hit Control A to select everything, the background layer, so it doesn't look weird. But I now clicked the this top layer, which I'm going to rename now to top half. And now I can move this around. This is my top half, right? And now let's do the same for the bottom tattoos. There we go. Let's make these way, way bigger. So we start with this one, scale. Scale. Let's move it up. I just want to see that tattoo right there. Maybe make it a little bigger. It's a floating transformation right now, so I'm going to create a new layer for it and go down here to the now empty layer and get rid of it. Now the next one, let's move this over here and let's scale it to be a lot bigger and move it. Beautiful. And then the last one is this one. Move it up a little bit before I scale it up. Scale, move. There we go. So now we no longer have any empty space remaining. And I'm going to merge these ones into each other. I'm going to call this one bottom half. And you'll notice that our images are actually outside the border of our canvas, and we can get rid of all those extra pixels we don't need anymore by just selecting the top layer, going to the crop tool, making sure that the delete cropped pixels option is selected, and then we just crop. Oh, I'm also going to turn off fixed aspect ratio. I'm going to crop the entire canvas, and it'll get rid of all the extra pixels. So right now, this is the background of my YouTube thumbnail. So let's, to make it look more uniform, I'm just going to apply a layer that gives everything just a solid color tint. I'm going to do that by going over here and creating a new layer. Just going to call this color tint. You can name it whatever you'd like, but it's just going to default to be the size of your canvas, which is what I want anyway. And I'm going to make sure it's above the images. And I'm actually going to make it so you cannot view these layers by clicking the little eyes. So I can only see the color tint layer. I'm going to go over to the bucket fill tool and let's choose a good color. I kind of like a dark blue if I'm going to be giving everything a color tint. And right now, if I do this, it's solid. And so now even if I make my other layers visible, you can't see them. But there's two ways you can make this work for you. Right now it's solid color, but under layer opacity over here, I can select this layer, and under opacity, I can change its opacity to be completely opaque or completely transparent, and I can find sort of a happy middle ground right there. So that's one way to do it. And the other way is to adjust your bucket fill tool so that it didn't apply the color with complete opacity either. But you've already seen that. So now I have the color tint area. And another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to merge these top half and bottom half together. And then I'm going to apply a filter. So let me uncheck the color tint visibility. And on this layer that shows all of my tattoos, I'm going to slightly blur it. I like a Gaussian blur. There we go. Click OK, and it slightly blurs it because it's going to be a background to a YouTube thumbnail. And next, I'm going to create actually, I don't need to create a new layer for this next part. I want to show you how to add text. There's a little text tool here, and I'm going to make sure my foreground color is white before I click this. And here you can choose your font. There's a couple of default fonts. It uses any font that's installed on your computer. I don't know if you know this, but the fonts you have access to are the ones that are installed on your computer. And you can download and install new cool fonts. And one font that I like to use is called Pixel Emulator, which is not going to be on your computer by default. It is one that I have downloaded and installed on my computer. You can set the size. I'm going to keep it at 80 and I can increase it. Color white. We can change this all later, but I'm just going to go ahead and click somewhere and write this. Oh, it actually didn't change the font. So I'm going to click that. Sometimes that happens. I'm going to make sure I sort of change the font over here. And then when I search for it, Pixel Emulator. Now I see the little preview of the little Pixel Emulator A's. So now I click over here, I can write this year's best tattoos 2024. I can already tell that the text size is too small. So I can either highlight these letters and adjust it over here, or since I just wrote it, I can go over here and adjust the size. And I'm just going to click and hold this and make it a lot bigger. Then just like with any other layer, this is now a layer you can manipulate. I can click over here to the move tool, and as long as you're over actual text and not an empty spot, but actual text, I can move this over here. Now this isn't going to be perfectly centered, so let's make sure it's perfectly centered. I'm going to select this text layer over here, make sure it's selected. I'm going to select the text tool. I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to set it to be centered, which it already is, and I'm going to expand the text canvas to make sure it's all the way to the left and all the way to the right. That so that it is, now I know that it's perfectly centered. Another thing, I don't like this color white. White is not a very catching color for a YouTube thumbnail, so I'm going to just select all these layers just by clicking and dragging, still on the text tool, going here and changing the color. People like warm colors, bright colors. I'm going to do sort of a bright lime green. It's kind of garish, but also catchy. So if I click the bottom background layer, this is going to be the thumbnail. Beautiful. Now, you need to know how to export things. Once you create an image, File. If I go to File and Save or Save As, this is going to save the GIMP project to my computer so I can, open it up later. If I go to Save As, go to Desktop, and I'm going to say working template for thumbnail and save it. Right, it'll create a GIMP project file right here, so I can open it up and keep on editing it. However, if I want to export it and actually create the image, go to File, go to Export, I click Export As, and now on the desktop is where I want to be saving it. And actually, is there a better way? Exports. Same thing. And you can export the image. So I'm just going to call this tattoo thumbnail. You can also select which file type, or you can just sort of type it in. I'm going to save it as a PNG file, .png. Another common one is .jpg, where there's actually a whole bunch, but if you're a beginner, I recommend saving it as a PNG. I'm going to click Export and click Export. I'm going to minimize this. There we go. This year's best tattoos 2024. Here is my huge old image. Now, the last thing I want to teach you, I'm going to exit out of this, is how to do some art in GameMaker. Now, I'm a game designer, game developer. I do all of my own game art for the most, I should say the vast majority of my own art. And I do pixel art games, really, really crunchy pixel art. So I do that in GIMP. I go to File, I go to New, and I'm going to make my canvas really small because I make really small, crunchy pixel art. And for this, I'm going to make it 20 pixels by 20 pixels. And I'm going to click Advanced and make it transparent. And I'm going to hold Control or Command and scroll in and zoom in. Another way to zoom in or out is go to View and Zoom, and you can set the zoom and see the zoom in and zoom out shortcuts. I'm going to zoom in. And I can select the pencil tool. There's a bunch of different brush tools. If I hover over that, you see there's a paintbrush, airbrush, ink, my paintbrush. I like the pencil tool. If I click that or hit N, oh, sorry, I again bumped my microphone, which is not a great sound, right? Because it vibrates. And then say select the color and I'll make it dark blue so you can see it. And then I can change the size. I'm going to make the size to be just 1 pixel big. And this is me drawing pixel art. I'm just clicking and holding. I can change the brush to be different things. A star, for instance, makes it look like a Y when it's that small. Oop. But over here is where you can edit your brush, and there's a bunch of other brush options, but I'm going to let you discover that on your own. For now, I'm going to change it back to a single square and change it to 1 pixel in size, and I'm going to change the color to be white. And to make it easier to edit, I'm going to fill the background to be black. So you'll see underneath your color selection, there's going to be a little black and white. Oh, sorry, that's my phone. A little black and white button here. If you click that, it sets the foreground color to be black and the background color to be white. And it's just a great way to just get back to black and white colors really quickly. And I'm going to select the bucket fill tool and I'm going to fill this in all black. If you ever want to swap foreground and background colors, you can click there to swap it. And now here, I'm going to make sure I have white as my foreground color. I'm going to go back to the pencil tool. Now I can start drawing something. Say I want to draw like, I don't know, a door. but it's kind of hard in pixel art to work without grids. And actually, this is very helpful for whatever size art, even if you're doing like real illustrative art. You can set a grid to help you do art in GameMaker. I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to click Show Grid. And then I'm going to go to Image and click Configure Grid. I'm going to set the color of the grid to be a bright lime green. The spacing, I'm going to set to be 1 pixel horizontal and vertical. And I'm going to click OK. So now I have a grid, and I can click the pencil tool, and this will let me know where I can draw things. And it can also let me count because I used pixel art, right? So let's see if I'm making a door. There's some keyboard shortcuts that are helpful. If you click somewhere and hold Shift, this will create a line. So to create a door, I'm going to make it like down here, over here, down here. I want a rounded corner, so I'm going to actually get rid of that pixel right there just by making a black paintbrush. Oh, cancel. Back to white. A little rounded. I want a little doorknob here. A little doorknob. And let's give it sort of an outline. So this is going to be our door. And if you ever want to turn off the grid, just go to View and go click Show Grid. And this is a little pixel art door. Say I want the door to open from the other side. I'm just going to go over to the transform tools and see that flip is Shift F. I'm going to click Shift F on my computer, and I can set it to flip horizontally or vertically. So I'm going to select horizontal, click it, and it's going to flip the layer. Or for instance, if I want to transform it really weird, I can do the rotate tool, which is Shift R. I'm going to have it rotate every 15 degrees, which I have selected here. I'm going to click and hold, and I can rotate it to be on its side and click rotate. Hit Control Z. Now, say I have my pixel art here and I don't need this full canvas. I am going to crop it down. So now it's only 12 pixels by 17 pixels. And I want to keep the transparency because in images, especially if you save to PNG, you can save transparencies instead of just colors. So if you're doing game art, you'll oftentimes want parts of your image to be transparent instead of being like a rectangle canvas. And for this, I'm just going to go over here to select my select tools, and I want a fuzzy select, and I see fuzzy select is U, so I'm going to hit U. And this will, I'm going to make sure I uncheck feather edges. Threshold, that's fine. I'm going to click black, and any black pixels that are currently touching are going to get selected, and then I can hit the delete key. Since these black pixels weren't touching, I'm going to select that and hit delete. Select this and hit delete. You can also select by color. Control A, by going over here and go to select by color, which is Shift O. And this will select all the black pixels, and I can hit delete and it will delete them. So now I have a little pixel art door that I can use in my games. Now, if you want to make a much bigger piece of art, go for it. Create a huge canvas, go 2000 by 2000 or even bigger. You know, go down here, transparency. You have a big canvas to start drawing with, and you can still configure your grids. You can play around with the colors, right? And you can start making art with a little Wacom tablet or something. That should be everything you need to know to get started with GIMP, but I recommend you just keep playing around with things and seeing what this amazing app and tool can do for you. Thanks for watching.